in November when I presented the PSSA scores, kind of the state of Pennridge with our AP scores. And for at least the last 4 years, it's either been October or November when those scores are presented due to the state as we've gone through every year. Last year when I presented the scores, I said we would not be measuring SPP the way that we would not be measuring it as we had in the past, that the state was moving on to report cards, so to speak, for school districts in the state of Pennsylvania through a more holistic view. That is called Future Ready PA Index. So what I plan to do tonight is really give you an overview. When I actually present this information, or Dr. Bolton and I present this information, I will go in depth. I really want to be here tonight to let you know that we will not be having the SPP score as we had in the past. And I'll go through some of this with you. Okay, let's see if it works. And it does. Okay, wonderful. So you know, for No Child Left Behind, in the past, the accountability system was School Performance Profile, or SPP. There was federal accountability. There were improvement designations by priority and focus. There was a public-facing report card. And we used that SPP score for educator effectiveness and evaluations. Now, with ESSA, we're moved away from No Child Left Behind, Every Student Succeeds Act, the accountability and reporting, we still have federal accountability. But we're moving from priority and focus improvements to comprehensive and targeted improvements. And that's what we will be looking at. Hopefully, Pennridge will not be looking at comprehensive. I'll talk a little bit about what each of those mean and how the state plans on breaking them down. What the public will be able to see is the actual Future Ready Index. It's going to be online for the public to look at. Everything that I'm talking about, and then even more at a later date, the public will be able to see. So it will be online. While the SPP scores will not be public and will not be reported, they will be reported to schools to use for the teacher evaluation. So that is what will remain with SPP, but as you know, in the past when we talked about SPP for our district, for other districts, that will not be reported publicly. Okay. So, PDE's ESSA plan, the statewide long-term goal, and I know this is worded a little funny, it's really reduced by half the statewide percentage of students not meeting proficiency targets. So when we talk about our achievement scores and we're looking for our students to be proficient and or advanced on these assessments, the state, they want to reduce that gap, that change, by half. They're also going to be looking at our achievement scores, so we will be reporting on our achievement scores, our PSSAs and our keystones. That stays the same. They will also be looking at graduation rates. They're going to look at 4-year and 5-year. There'll be a combined percentage, and school districts not meeting at least 67%. They will be a targeted school. Our cohort is at 96.18 from last year, and our 5-year was at 93.5, so we really are not in any danger of worrying about that particular score. What I really like about this is the English language proficiency, our students who are English as a second language. And basically, the students who took the PSSA, and they were our ELL students, it was just the PSSA scores were reported for the students who took those exams. Now we're able to look at their progress by their assessments, which is a WIDA assessment access scores. So we'll be able to report how they're making progress over time on their learning goals as English language learners. So I think that was a very, very, that's an improvement over the former system. And then they'll also be measuring college and career readiness, and I'll get into more specifics about that. Okay, so these are the accountability measures. Some information on the Future Ready Index website will be accountability by federal means and just for information. These are the accountability measures. So advanced and proficient on the state assessments, which we have always had. Growth on the state assessments is PVAS, and I've talked about that for the last 4 years. Our graduation rate, which we just talked about. Chronic absenteeism is new. What they're going to do is they're calculating chronic absenteeism based on the number of students who have missed more than 10% of school across an academic year. So the actual formula is number of students enrolled for 60 or more days. So if you're not enrolled for at least 60, you're not counted in that count. And present for 90% or more over the number of students enrolled for 60 days across the board. So they're really taking a look and making sure that students across the state of Pennsylvania are coming to school. Because one of the problems when they see the test scores across the state is absenteeism. We don't really fit into that category. At this time, we have a 94.17 attendance rate at the high school. We already talked about the English language proficiency, and then college and career readiness, and I think Mrs. Miller mentioned something about Naviance moving down to the lower levels. The state wants every district to record evidence that we are working with our students, even from elementary school, on college and career readiness. So we have to report at least 2 pieces of evidence per 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, and then 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, those bands. And then by the time students reach 11th grade, they should have 20 pieces of evidence that they have been working on, thinking about their preferences, where they want to go, what their college or career options are, and perhaps at least thinking about what they want to do. Some students may not know, but they will have a lot of opportunity to plan for that. So the first group of students at Pennridge who will have gone through that entire system is the class of 2026. So by that year, that group will have gone through all of this. But everyone needs to do it now because we've already had to report last school year, so it's going to be reported on this on the Future Ready Index, pieces of evidence that our students have been working on college and career. So that is what's going to be populated in Naviance for us to be able to report it then to the state. This is just, I thought you wanted to take a look at, this is just a screenshot of the first page of what it's going to be looking at. So it's kind of fuzzy, but I wanted to let you see that it looks different than what it looked like before. Just a screenshot. So what you see on there, there's 3 sections. So basically, they're the state achievement measures of which we have known, and they're not going away. Then we have the on-track measures. So the on-track measures are grade 3 reading, grade 7 math, ELL, and our chronic absenteeism. Districts may use an alternate assessment that meet the criteria for grade 3 reading and grade math in place of the PSSA. We, as most districts, did not move in that direction yet. So our grade 3 and grade 3 reading and grade 7 math, those scores will be reported as PSSA scores this year. Not that we won't change that down the line, but I don't know that any of the districts in the county felt ready to move it that quickly on something like that. And then there's 3 sections. The other section, again, is the college and career readiness, the graduation rate. We're looking at industry-based learning and the credentials that our students are receiving. They're going to be looking at the AP, and they do that now, the number of courses we offer and the number of students who take those courses. The state will be reporting post-secondary transitions. They will populate that data. They're also looking at, which I'm also very interested in and think it's a good idea, career pathways for students. So this is giving, even though it's different, there are opportunities here for us to be taking a look at different ways, maybe even better ways, to help our students along a career pathway in the future. So, it is similar to the SPP, so it is a calculation of the number of students who are proficient and or advanced on our state assessments. Now, formerly, the percentage of students advanced was an extra credit number, and that is not there anymore. They will report that number, but it will not be counting as an extra credit number. And this is another difference. They're going to be, as we did in No Child Left Behind, disaggregate the subgroups. And you know, year after year, I've been talking about the historically underperforming group that was kind of lumped into one group. They'll be disaggregated. So you're going to see each one. You'll see a target date, and I don't know that I said that to begin with. The target date year for the state is 2030. So they're going to start from the year 2015. The target year is 2030. So districts will have to make incremental growth towards the 2030 goals of percentages, which they will outline. So that's what I want to show you when I come back. I didn't think it made sense to show you that now without knowing what our scores were. So to make it more relevant and comprehensible, you'll see what the long-term goals are, you'll see where we are, and you'll see where our target goals are by group. And the on-track measures, I've talked about those already, and we can use local measures that meet a criteria that's pretty intensive and comprehensive. So we may do that. And we'll continue with our WIDA scores for our English language learners. And then we'll be tracking career beginning in grade 3. We will, again, be uploading that into our PIMS. We'll look for industry credentials, not just through Upper Bucks Technical School. We'll look for Microsoft credentialing, CPR credentialing, other ways that we can credential our students. And again, post-secondary will be handled by the state, and they will populate that on the Future Ready Index. Now, everybody who has seen the SPP scores know that it has a lot of different colors. So they're keeping with their color scheme. So again, there'll be a school score for each measure. The data is disaggregated for each measure. And again, the comparison will be from the statewide target, and then the growth will be based on a baseline of 2015-16 to target to 2030 for each measure. And then each year, the interim target is how close are you moving in the right direction to meet that final goal. So here's the color coding. Blue says you're meeting it or exceeding it. Green says you're meeting the progress target, and red says you're not meeting that goal or progress target, and there's no single building score like the SPP. There'll also be arrows. So even if you're not meeting the target, if the data suggests that you are on your way to, so there'll be an arrow pointing up. If the data says that you're not, it's going to have an arrow pointing down. So when we actually have this, and I can show it to you, it'll make more sense, but I think we're pretty used to the color coding system by the state. They didn't make it that much different. So the designations, or those classifications, the comprehensive support and improvement is for the bottom 5% of Title I schools, which we will not fit that criteria. Any high school, not just Title I, with less than 67% graduation rate will be targeted. Any school that meets the comprehensive support and improvement parameters at the subgroup level. So when I talked about historically underperforming students, all the subgroups, if you have a total in your building of 20 or more, then you would get a score for that. If it's under 20, you won't. So for example, our ESL population at Guth is over 20. In the middle schools, it's under 20. And at the high school, we're approaching 20. So 20 is the number for the subgroups where you get a score. So I attended the webinars. Dr. Bolton and I both have been attending meetings about Future Ready Index. It is expected to come out, roll out to the public in December. So while typically I come here and share our progress, either October or November, because we can have a discussion on, I don't know how we would be able to do that until this rolls out, so that I could give you an accurate picture of the entire Future Ready Index. Does that make sense? Okay. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? Again, this is really a broad overview. This isn't everything. I just wanted the main points to be there will not be the typical SPP, and that this is a more comprehensive, broader look at the progress of school districts. And the exciting thing is college and career readiness is really a big part of it, which I think will push all districts to move in that direction to improve. Thank you.
Having seen numbers of these systems and all the iterations that come with them, and the fact that you have a 2030 target makes me skeptical about this, just as with previous systems. By 2030, everything will have changed.
Correct.
At the state level, at the federal level, and so forth. I like the fact that there's no extra credit. I thought that was idiotic. If it was important, it should have been included in some way, and if it wasn't important, why would you include it, and make it extra credit, so to speak? So I think some of the things that you've highlighted as improvements, I agree with, but it still seems like a relatively complex and not terribly informative system to me.
Thank you.
You can use our standard. Thank you for your comment. Yeah. No, I agree. Like it seems the same. Dr. Darnell kind of took the words out of my mouth. That it seems like yet another kind of, we're just chasing something, and I don't even know what it is. But I wanted to ask you about you mentioned that schools will be able to use their local test to report with. And so then I was thinking, well, how is that fair, like uniform? How can Pennridge be compared to another school district that's using a different formula, basically? Yeah.
Which is it's a great question. There's criteria that you have, it's many pages long that you have to go through, and there's only certain assessments that will even fall into the category, and then it has to be approved. I don't know if Dr. Bolton, you know the answer to that or not, in terms of, I don't know how they decided on which ones they would accept and which ones they wouldn't.
They have not defined the approval process yet to submit your own assessment, but the example they have given us have been company-produced, normed exams. And so things like Linkit, programs that could be used that are not developed by the district. I have not seen an example where a school district has developed a test and said, here's how we're evaluating third grade reading, because obviously then you could design a test that would give you pretty good numbers. And so they are trying to use. Most districts, as Dr. Scheid said, have found that their numbers are better off if they're using the PSSA results as of now, as we are looking to develop what other possibilities are out there for us. But they are all standards-based as well as norm-referenced criteria pieces that they would require us to use.
More to come.
No other questions, comments? Thank you, Dr. Scheid.
Thank you.
So our next curriculum committee meeting is scheduled for October 8th, and we're back to public comment.
Sue Furlong, West Rock Hill Township. A couple of questions on the environmental science textbook. It was mentioned that there are certain chapters available. I was wondering if those could be made available to the public. And also the presentation with the scores. I know we do very well with science. It's probably a bright spot. And I think that presentation would make a nice presentation, make it available to the public, because I think it speaks well of how we're doing. Jogged my memory, last year, you're right, we did PSSAs a little bit later, and then we got snowed out and a cancellation, and we skipped a month and never did really get around to the middle school PSSA evaluation, but we did do the high school. Hopefully we will not have the bad weather this year. If I understood what was said correctly, the SPP scores will be made available to the administration, not to the public. Will there be, do you know if that's going to be by building, or will that be just by the district?
It's by, it's by building.
Can you make that available to the public?
I don't know whether you can or whether you can't. All I know is it will not be on the public website.
Well, I find that to be a very valuable piece of information, especially since we have 7 different elementary schools. And I think that, I know I met a teacher from North Penn who said her contract was actually tied to the SPP score. And if they didn't make improvements, it was a certain percentage or something, they didn't get their raise, or at least not all of it. But it's a great tool for looking building to building to building, and I hate to lose that level of detail. And I don't understand why the state would take that away from the public. If I had a child in a certain elementary school, I would want to see how that school overall is performing. So I'd like for you to find out if that can be made public, and if it can be made public, for us to take the initiative to present that on our websites. Maybe each school, each one has a web page, put that on there. So I would find out about that. Anyway, those were my questions.
Okay, we'll look into that for you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Mrs. Furlong, sorry, I have the chapter example for you.
Okay. Well, I was just thinking, some of the parents might want to see that.
Okay.
It's available online as well.
Is it? Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Good evening, Lee Rush, Percy. I used to have an old joke that my opinion is no longer worth 2 cents, but due to inflation, it's worth a nickel. I have a better one tonight. So I actually wanted to figure out what % of my taxes contributes to our overall budget. I'm sure Sue, or I think Dr. Bolton's a math teacher. Somebody will correct me if my math is wrong, but I pay about $4,000 a year in taxes for school, and I think the budget's about $133 million, give or take $1 million. So now I think I represent like 3/1000ths of a % of an opinion. Like whatever this opinion is worth, I'm going to put a value on it, 3/1000ths of 1%. Because I'm only one person. I've lived a bunch of years in our district, and I've actually think I've seen 5 superintendents here, Dr. Kime, Dr. Slattery, Dr. Kish, Dr. Radigan, and now Dr. Bolton. And again, welcome to our district. I look so forward to getting to know you more. I love seeing the photographs and the videos so far. Look like you've been having fun, which is great, because to me, fun is really essential in education. I want to thank Dave Rice for being on our board, for volunteering, stepping up for that important position. And it is a new year. I remember when I used to teach, New Year's were always exciting. New year, new beginnings, new class, new students, new faces. This year especially with a new superintendent, a recent new labor contract, which is always a great thing, 5 years of some labor peace. And essentially a new board with 2 new members, and a new collective board. And we almost had a new social studies text, but that was not to be this year for a variety of reasons, and I really don't want to belabor it, because it is, to use an old phrase, water under the bridge. But I take that decision and I look at it very closely to understand what was all happening over the course of the decision-making process. So my opinion is this, I guess my concern is this. If I take Peter out of the equation, because he skews everything with his history of 27 years, but if I look at the number of years and number of months that our board has been serving these positions, it's a relatively, not young in terms of years, but just an inexperienced board. And as you can see, just in that intense presentation, the state and policymakers, federal and state level, it's pretty deep. It's a lot of stuff to comprehend. I find, even being in the field and kind of taking all that in, I agree in a way with Peter that what's here today will be gone tomorrow. So take it with a grain of salt. But my concern is this: over the last several months, and the reason I want to share this tonight, I travel a lot. I'm not going to be around the next several weeks. I'm going to miss some meetings. I missed last week's activities meeting. I'm just concerned about the relationship between governance and administration in our district. The relationship between senior staff, administrators. And I think we pay our administrators probably well over $3 million collectively. If we add up our senior cabinet, our principals, it's a lot of money. We pay for top talent, I think we have it. But the rub between administrative and governance issues is critical, I think, for the long-term health of a district and a community. So some of the questions that board members usually ask themselves are this. I mean, I mentioned before in one of my talks about the 4 main goals of a board: budget, curriculum, policy, and choosing the superintendent. But other more deeper questions are this usually for board members. Am I providing ethical leadership to the superintendent and his or her senior staff? And do I establish solid policies that can withstand legal challenges? Am I providing ethical leadership to our superintendent and his or her staff along all different issues around what I should be involved with? Am I establishing solid policies that can withstand more scrutiny within lawyers? And I know that we will be sued from time to time. We can't avoid that at times. We just always want to win. Am I executing my fiduciary responsibility in overseeing expenditures of public funds? And finally, for board members, am I aware of all my own motivations and the choices that I make about which issues I enter into as a discussion participant? Or am I stepping into areas of operations and issues of management that are really in the purview of our senior staff and administrators? And administrators, too, likely ask themselves different questions, such as, do I provide leadership to our board and give them, as clear as I can, my own opinion, my professional opinion, and make clear my hopes and desires for an outcome? Do I point out which policies that we need to have strengthened? Administrators also ask themselves, am I providing direct and honest communication? Direct and honest communication with the board and share my professional opinion on all matters within my purview? Or am I avoiding direct and honest communication to avoid conflicts, thereby placing board members in a position of making an administrative decision? So those are some questions that I think that are, deep. They take time to work through. And I just hope that as we go along that those conversations happen publicly, that we can all see the maturation of this relationship, of how board members take their roles and defer when they need to administrators who've spent their entire career learning all the ins and outs of different issues and different decisions. So the most recent one, I guess, that came up was the Activities Committee. I missed the meeting last week. I would have been here. I was on vacation. And I know I'm over my minute, so I'll let it lie here, but I just really think that's the next big decision about what truly is within the board's purview and what's in the administration's purview. It's not an easy one to figure out, but I think that's the big issue about where we draw lines between our roles as board members and administrators, because I've seen, I travel a lot in America to different districts, I've seen tremendous costs that districts pay, and it's in terms of not financial, in a way, it's human resources of when good people leave districts because they didn't figure out that good relationship. And I hope that never happens, that we don't lose good people because the relationship gets skewed about what area we're both in. So, thank you very much for listening. I wish you all well, and continue having a great beginning of the year, and thank you.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any comments? If not, we will adjourn this meeting. Good night.